All right, let's jump right in. But real quick, this explainer is actually brought to you by CertFuel. If you're prepping for your exams, they've got this full Series 24 course packed with adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards, and unlimited practice exams that are weighted exactly like the real thing. Definitely check it out at certfuel.com. Okay, so today we are talking about the market access rule. Now, to make this stick, I want you to imagine the absolute most exclusive, high-stakes nightclub in the entire financial district. Now, this club, it represents the trading floor of an exchange. And running security right at the front door is Priya, the principal. Priya works for a registered broker-dealer, or BD, and her whole job is just to make sure nobody gets into that club and, wrecks the place. And enter Carla, the customer. But Carla isn't just your everyday run-of-the-mill customer. She is a lightning-fast, highly sophisticated HFT bot. And Carla? She wants to sprint straight past the velvet rope and get right onto the dance floor. Or, well, the trading venue. She is asking Priya for what's known as unfiltered, naked sponsored access. Well, guess what? We've got to stamp a massive denied right on Carla's request. The market access rule strictly prohibits this. It literally shut down the practice of naked sponsored access completely. So Carla cannot bypass security. I don't care how fast or sophisticated she is. Every single order she sends absolutely must pass through Priya's security checkpoints first. So you might be wondering, why is Priya the bouncer in the first place? Well, it comes down to how we define market access. Market access basically means having access to trade on an exchange or an alternative trading system, which we call an ATS, as a result of being a member or subscriber. And because Priya's firm is the actual member of the exchange or the ATS, it is their direct regulatory responsibility to act as that bouncer. They have to put a strict layer of risk controls between Carla the customer and the trading venue. If Priya's firm lets Carla borrow their VIP pass to get in, they are providing market access, period. And that means they are on the hook. Now, let's do a quick clarification on exactly who needs to set up this whole elaborate bouncer system. The market access rule applies to covered firms. These are broker-dealers that either have market access themselves or they provide it to customers through sponsored or direct access arrangements. But, and this is key, if you're just routing your orders through another broker-dealer, you're exempt from setting up these specific market access controls yourself. Why? Well, because the routing broker, the one who actually holds the membership to the exchange, they're the bouncer. You're basically just another guest waiting in line. And pure agency brokers that don't have direct exchange memberships, they're exempt too. So back to Priya. Her firm is definitely covered. And that means she's got to hire 4 mandatory bouncers to stand at that door. Let's look at the lineup. First up, we've got the pre-trade financial controls. Second, the pre-trade regulatory controls. Third, the erroneous order controls. And finally, standing right by the exit to watch what everyone does once they're inside, we have the post-trade surveillance controls. Every single one of Carla's trades has to survive this gauntlet. All right, I actually want you to pause the explainer for a second. Think about this. Carla's an HFT bot, right? She needs speed. Literally every microsecond counts for her. So can Priya just pick, say, 3 of these 4 controls to speed things up a bit for Carla? Like maybe drop the erroneous order check just this once? What do you think? Exam trap, no way, absolutely not. All 4 of these categories are strictly mandatory. If a firm is missing even one of the 4, they have violated the market access rule. You are going to constantly see this tested as a list completion question. When the exam asks you what a firm needs to be compliant, you absolutely must find the answer choice that includes all 4. Do not let them trick you into thinking one is optional just because a client is highly sophisticated. And this brings us to a brilliant illustration of the difference between our first 2 bouncers. Because honestly, they are incredibly easy to confuse. Just look at this side-by-side comparison. Pre-trade financial controls focus heavily on capital and credit. Think firm net capital limits and per-customer credit limits. The whole goal here is incredibly simple. Prevent Carla from blowing up the firm's money. If Carla tries to buy $1 billion of stock on a $1 million credit line, this control instantly shuts her down. Pre-trade regulatory controls, on the other hand, focus strictly on compliance and rules. Think short sell locates or trying to trade halted securities. The goal here isn't just about money, it's to prevent Carla from breaking trading laws. If Carla tries to short a stock without a documented locate, this bouncer stops her cold. Okay, time for another active recall check. Play out the scenario in your head for a second. Let's say Carla hits her preset credit limit. Can Priya's system just flag a bright red warning on a supervisor's screen, but let the order pass through to the market while they investigate? Exam trap.
The answer is a massive no. The system must physically block or reject the non-compliant order. A control that merely flags a warning, but actually lets Carla's order onto the exchange, is completely useless under this rule. The bouncer can't just wave Carla through while shouting, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that." The bouncer has to physically shut the door. It absolutely must prevent the entry of the order.
So let's move to how Priya actually configures the system in the first place, because she must maintain direct and exclusive control. You can think of it like Priya is literally holding the physical volume dial on a massive amplifier. Step 1. Priya conducts rigorous due diligence on Carla to see exactly how much risk she can handle. Step 2. Priya sets the exact threshold on that dial herself. Step 3. The order is blocked if the threshold is breached. The crucial takeaway here is that Carla can never reach over and adjust her own dial, even if she's the most sophisticated bot on the planet. The broker-dealer holds the dial. There is a thing called limited reliance on a customer's controls, but that's an incredibly rare exception, mostly for certain regulatory controls when dealing with another registered broker-dealer. But even then, Priya's firm remains totally responsible.
Exam trop here, guys. When the regulators come knocking, Priya cannot just shrug and say, well, a $10 million intraday limit is kind of the industry standard for HFT bots. No way. The firm must demonstrate the basis for the specific thresholds they chose. That means Priya has to pull out the paperwork and prove the exact due diligence they used to set Carla's specific dial. If Carla has a $50 million net worth, Priya must document exactly why a $10 million limit makes sense for her specific financial profile.
Now, I need this next big number absolutely burned into your memory. 1. These risk management controls, they aren't a set it and forget it kind of deal. The effectiveness of the firm's controls must be reviewed, to test for gaps and weaknesses, at least one time per year, annually. That clock is always ticking toward that annual deadline. So before I give you the answer on this next one, ask yourself, someone has to put their career on the line and officially certify these controls every single year. Who takes that ultimate personal regulatory risk? Is it Priya? Is it the Chief Compliance Officer, the CCO? Make a guess. Exam trap. It is not the Chief Compliance Officer, and it's not the trading desk supervisor. The Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, certifies annually. The personal accountability for this flows all the way to the absolute top of the firm. And there is a massive caveat here. This review must be documented. If the CEO just chats with Priya in the hallway and is like, hey, controls look good, that's a violation. There have to be minutes, test results, and remediation notes. In fact, failing to conduct and document this annual review is a market access rule violation entirely on its own, even if the controls themselves worked perfectly all year. Now, you might be asking, why are we spending so much time on this one rule? Well, because the market access rule is the technical backbone for almost everything else you're going to study in this section. It enforces regulation SHO or Reg SHO at the order entry level by ensuring short sale locates are done. The post-trade surveillance data fuels the firm's best execution analysis. And it absolutely powers the firm's anti-manipulation duties, stopping things like wash trades, spoofing, and layering debt in their tracks. Which brings us to our final thought. Without the market access rule functioning perfectly, the whole regulatory house of cards basically comes crashing down. So ask yourself this. If Priya's post-trade surveillance bouncer falls asleep on the job tonight, what other major trading rules is Carla breaking tomorrow morning without the firm ever even knowing? Keep that in mind, keep studying, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.